Welcome, Facebook viewers. This is the weekly Bond and Botus Facebook Live. My name is Brad Botus, and we appreciate you joining us today. The Bond and Botus law offices are located throughout Alabama and throughout Mississippi. And for the last 30 plus years, we've been helping people with financial problems. And we know right now, after this last year and a half, that a lot of you are facing financial challenges. It's been a tough year and a half. Our offices are offering absolutely free initial consultations. We'll do them by phone, we'll do them by video, however you're comfortable. We want you, though, to be proactive and to reach out for help. You can contact one of our offices by calling the phone number on the screen, or you can go to our website, which is also on the screen. Learn a little bit more about what we do, how we can help people. And then there's a form on our website where you can request some assistance. We'll even chat with you on the website if that's the easiest way for you to get started. So on today's Facebook Live, we're going to talk about the different types of debt. And there's good debt, there's bad debt, and then there's really bad debt. And I'm not going to do this with a guest today. I've decided I want to just talk to you one-on-one and treat you as if though you were somebody consulting with me for help about debt. And we'll just walk through the different situations we see, how we can help you, and how we operate. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Brad Botus. I've been practicing bankruptcy law since 1987. So for a very long time, the Bond and Botus law offices have been helping people since 1989. We've helped thousands and thousands of people with financial challenges during that time. And this is a challenge for us because there's so many people hurting right now. And we want to be available to help the members in our communities with the challenges that they're facing and are going to face as we come out of this challenging time that we've been through. My background, I'm a native of the Chicago suburb of LaGrange, Illinois. Grew up there, lived in Alabama since 1979. I moved here to attend college, met my beautiful wife Kay here while in college. And when I asked her father if I could marry her, he said yes, but you can't take her back up north. So I never did. We've been married for going on 35 very happy years now. Have 3 great children. And Alabama has been my home. I love the South, love the people in the South. And bankruptcy has become my focus just because I know the financial, what financial stress can do to an individual. I know how it can be overwhelming. I know how people just have so much anxiety. Financial problems keep you from sleeping. They cause marital problems. They cause family problems. And we've been able to help people deal with these problems. So what I've learned is the hardest thing for somebody facing a financial challenge to do is to make that first call for help, to reach out to an attorney to say, I'm having financial problems. I need some help. So what we'll do today is we'll treat this presentation like you were consulting with me, like you'd given me a call, told me you were having financial problems, and we'd go through the scenario, how we can help you, how we can help with different types of debt, both in bankruptcy and outside of bankruptcy, and how you can rebuild your credit if you do seek bankruptcy protection following the bankruptcy. If you contact me for help, and we either sit down in my office or we meet virtually, the first thing I really want to know is, your story, your background. What led you to my office or to our phone call, our virtual meeting? What got you into the situation you're in right now? And I can tell you, after having done this for decades, that contrary to a lot of people's belief, there's just no stereotypical bankruptcy client. All different types of people have financial problems. I've represented attorneys, I've represented physicians, I've represented carpenters, I've represented people from just about every socioeconomic class that you can imagine, because financial problems happen to all kinds of people. I often joke with people and I say one of the reasons I started my own law firm was so that I had the ability to fire a client. When I was working for somebody else, the client was somebody that I was compelled in some way to assist. At my law firm, if I feel like somebody's trying to abuse a system, if somebody is not sincere, they need to go find another lawyer. But I can tell you the vast majority of the people that have come to see me are good, hardworking people, and something bad has just happened. Maybe they've gone through a divorce and now you have the same amount of income, but that income is providing for two households instead of one. Maybe there have been health problems. You've been away from work because of an injury or sickness and you got behind on your bills. Maybe you tried to start your own business and unfortunately you did so right before this pandemic set in a difficult time to start and operate a business. But all kinds of things can happen that can create financial challenges. Whatever it is, though, we're going to treat you with respect. We're going to treat you just like we would a family member. And even though I'm a bankruptcy attorney, my first objective, and I know it's counterproductive, but my first objective is going to be to try to keep you out of bankruptcy. We're going to explore all the options, but bankruptcy should not be your first choice. So once I've learned a little bit about you, I've learned about your background, what got you into the situation you're in now, we're going to kind of go through a due diligence checklist. I'm going to ask you some questions. I need to know about what assets you have. Do you own your home or are you renting? Do you owe on a car? Do you have more than one car? Something that's important for us to know is, are you suing anyone? Or do you have the right to sue anyone? People wonder why, as a bankruptcy attorney, asking that. It's because if you're suing someone or if you have the right to sue somebody, it's something you own. And you could lose control over that right to sue somebody else or pending lawsuit if you file a bankruptcy. During this time when I'm seeking information, it's very important that you be just as straightforward as possible. I need to know the truth. I need to know about everything out there. What we discuss is confidential, but I need to know the honest answers to every question I ask so that I can give you good advice. The more your attorney knows, the more your attorney is going to be able to help you. Once I learn about the assets you have and the types of debt you have, then we're going to discuss your options. And as I said, my first objective is to keep you out of bankruptcy if I can. Don't think that you're going to contact me or one of the attorneys that I work with and we're going to try to steer you into bankruptcy. That's not what we'll do. We'll talk about whether or not it makes sense to use equity in your home to try to borrow your way out of debt. Sometimes borrowing your way out of debt isn't possible or it doesn't make good sense, but real estate values have gone up significantly in most parts of the country, certainly in Alabama and Mississippi where we practice. In many neighborhoods, many areas, real estate values have gone up. So you may have some equity in your home and maybe you qualify for a mortgage and it makes good sense for you to borrow your way out of debt. We'll talk to you about that. We, of course, aren't mortgage brokers and we can't help you with entering into a mortgage or refinancing your home. But if we think that's a good option, we'll certainly encourage you to look into that. Sometimes working with a good credit counseling agency make sense. And there are some good credit counseling agencies. There are some that bill themselves to be credit counseling agencies that aren't so good. And we'll talk about that. Many of you have heard ads from companies that say that they'll negotiate with your creditors, that they'll help you avoid bankruptcy by negotiating down the balance on your credit cards or other financial obligations. I can tell you that you, in most cases, need to be very cautious of those type companies. There should, or maybe some good ones out there, but my experience is that a lot of them will also take advantage of you. We have done previous Facebook Live episodes on this topic. Did a great one with an attorney out of California by the name of Eric Clark. And all of these Facebook Live episodes live on both our Facebook page and on our website. But Eric Clark, a great attorney out of California, another board certified bankruptcy attorney, has done a lot of work. He's looked into these companies that say they'll help you negotiate with your creditors. Be careful. Be cautious of these type companies. Often they're going to do more harm to your credit than a bankruptcy itself would do. In fact, I can tell you this, bankruptcy in many instances can be your first step in rebuilding your credit, but it's going to depend on you and your situation. And that's why I need to learn more about you. Whatever option you think is out there, though, reach out to us for help. Consultations are absolutely free. We've been helping people with money problems for decades. Give one of us a call. We'll talk confidentially about your options. If your non-bankruptcy options have been exhausted, if those options just don't make sense, then we're going to talk about bankruptcy, and we're going to lay out what the different types of bankruptcy are, how each of those types of bankruptcy work, how they'll impact the particular debt you have, and then we'll answer your questions. So let's start with the different types of bankruptcy. There are essentially 4 different types of bankruptcy available to an individual. Chapter 11 is a large, usually a corporate type reorganization. It is available for individuals, and it's used in some circumstances, but it's very rare. There are certain circumstances where an individual may want to look at a Chapter 11 reorganization. Chapter 12 is a special kind of reorganization, but only available for a family farmer or a family fisherman, somebody that makes a living either by farming or fishing. We do some Chapter 12 work, but it's very rare, even in the states of Alabama and Mississippi, where we have a lot of farmers. Chapter 12 isn't utilized often, but it's available, and it's something you should talk about. Now, Chapter 7 is a straight bankruptcy. That's what most people think of when they think of bankruptcy. It's a quick proceeding. It's a type proceeding where you can discharge most of your debt. The entire process normally only lasts 4 or 5 months. For many people, it's a great option. And then Chapter 13 is an individual reorganization. It's available for a consumer that has regular income, that needs to work their way out of debt. It makes sense in many instances based upon the type of debt you have, your bankruptcy history, if you filed a prior bankruptcy, or some people choose Chapter 13 simply because rather than filing a straight bankruptcy, that they want to try to pay back some of the debt they've accumulated. But all of these choices are going to be dependent upon you and your situation. So we'll talk about your assets, as I described earlier, what you own. We'll talk about whether or not you filed a prior bankruptcy. Now, most people don't want to even think about filing bankruptcy once. Unfortunately, some people find themselves talking to a bankruptcy attorney a second time. We're one business. I don't want repeat customers. I'm hoping that if we help you seek bankruptcy protection, we're going to be able to help you get on with your life, put the bankruptcy behind you. But there are situations, certainly, where people get into financial problems through no fault of their own. So you may have a previous bankruptcy, and if you do, we need to know about it, when it took place, the type of bankruptcy. I want to know whether or not you're up to date with your tax returns. Taxes are treated differently than most other debt in bankruptcy, and whether or not you have filed all your returns is going to impact your eligibility for certain types of bankruptcy. I then am going to look at the different types of debt you may have. And that's really what I want to focus on today in today's presentation. The different types of debt are going to impact whether or not you're going to keep the property that you own. They're going to impact the type of bankruptcy you may be able to file and how the debt's going to be treated in bankruptcy. So let's start with the biggest category. That's going to be, is your debt secured debt or unsecured debt? Secured debt means that that creditor has a lien or a mortgage or a security interest against some property that you own. Now, when I say property, it may be land, it may be your home, it may be a mortgage against your home. It could also be personal property. If there's a lien against your car, you've borrowed money to buy your car, or you've taken out a loan against your car, that creditor is secured because they have a lien against your car. Sometimes when you go out and just take a personal loan out, you go to a local loan company or bank, they're going to ask you to list items of property that you have that you can put up as collateral. So with a secured creditor, they have an interest in something you own. Typically, those type loans are less risky for the bank, mortgage company, loan company, whoever's lending you money, and typically they will thus have a lower interest rate. The reason they're less risky for the lender is because if you don't pay, they can come and take your property. We don't want them to take your property. And there are ways we can utilize bankruptcy to treat secured debt so that you don't lose your car, you don't lose your home, you don't list those items of property you put up on a loan. So a secured loan is any type of obligation, any type of debt you have where there is collateral. It may be some type of debt you've gone out and incurred intentionally. You took out a mortgage to buy a home, you took out a loan to buy a car, or there may be some sort of lien against your property. Maybe a creditor has sued you and recorded that judgment against your property. Maybe you owe back taxes, and either the IRS or the taxing authority in the state you live in has recorded a tax lien against your property. Those debts then also become secured. So anytime the creditor has some sort of interest against property you own, it's a secured debt. Unsecured debt is just the opposite. That's where you have incurred some sort of obligation to a company, a bank, and you haven't placed any collateral. Typical unsecured loans might be credit cards, personal loans from a bank or a loan company, debt that you didn't incur intentionally. Medical debt is typically unsecured debt because they don't have any type of lien against your property. So any debt where there's not an interest in property you own held by the company that you owe the money to is going to be unsecured debt. Revolving debt. What is revolving debt? You hear that term a lot. Revolving debt is going to be debt that you can incur over and over again. An example would be a credit card. Credit card isn't a loan where you make equal monthly payments and it's paid off over a certain period of time. Instead, you keep borrowing against the same balance and you keep making payments against the same balance. Or perhaps, and hopefully you don't maintain a balance at all. You just pay off the full amount every month. An equity line against your home would be another type of revolving debt where you can borrow against the equity in your home and then pay off against that loan, but there aren't fixed payments. There isn't a fixed date on which the debt's going to be paid off. There is also student loan debt. Student loan debt has grown to levels in our country that we've never seen before. In fact, student loan debt was one of the types of debt that grew significantly in 2020, and I'm sure so far in 2021. Student loan debt is money that you borrow to go to school, to pay for your education. Now, some student loan debt may not be used specifically to pay tuition. It may be used to pay for your housing while you're in school. But a student loan debt is treated in a specific manner under the bankruptcy code. So it's important that we know whether or not you have student loan debt. Mortgage debt. I think that's self-explanatory, but if you borrow money to buy your home, usually what happens is you buy the home is deeded to you, and then you deed an interest in that home back to the mortgage company or the bank, and they hold that interest in your home in the form of a mortgage until you pay that balance off. Mortgage loans are treated differently in bankruptcy than a lot of other debts. So we'll talk about how mortgage loans are treated. Car loans. You borrow money to buy a car. And usually the financing is done right at the dealership or used car facility where you buy your car, and they take a lien against your car. Car loans are treated uniquely in bankruptcy. There are certain things we can do based upon how long you've had the car, how long you've made payments, and whether or not the money was actually borrowed to purchase the car. So you could have a car loan that wasn't used to purchase the car. Maybe you paid off the loan, but then you got into financial problems again and you went and took out another loan against your car. That would be a non-purchase money loan. That's going to impact how we can help you in bankruptcy. One of the things about car loans that concerns me is that during the 30-something years that I've been filing bankruptcies, I've seen typical car loans go from 36-month loans where you pay off the balance in 3 years to 48-month loans, 60 months, which I thought was just a long, long period of time when they first came out. And now I'm seeing 72-month loans and even further. Folks, you need to be aware of the length of the car loan when you're going out and buying a car. If you finance that car for anything more than 48 or at the maximum 60 months, it's likely your car is going to, you're going to need a new car before the loan pays off. So you're still going to owe money on that car when it comes time to buy a new car. Be very aware when you finance a car of the number of payments you have, how long you're going to be paying on the car, and the interest rate you're going to be paying on the car. Cars are notorious for creating negative equity, which means you owe more on the car than what it's worth, and that can get people into serious problems. So be careful with car loans. Tax debt, we've talked about that it can be secured. They can record a lien against your house, but it's treated differently than just about any other debt in bankruptcy. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, some people incur debt that they use to start up a business or to operate a business. Business debt can sometimes be treated differently than personal debt. All those are things that a good bankruptcy attorney is going to go over with you. I'm going to need to know in order to advise you properly. So we're going to ask you about all of the different types of debt you have, and we want to have approximate balances on the types of debt you have. And we're going to talk about your bankruptcy options. So for most individuals, they're either going to need Chapter 7, straight bankruptcy, or if they're going to restructure the debt, most of them are going to be Chapter 13 personal reorganization debt. Chapter 7 has many good aspects and some bad points. Same with Chapter 13. So the best thing about Chapter 7, I've already told you, it's relatively quick. The entire process from start to finish, from the day we file your bankruptcy petition to when you get your discharge at the end of the bankruptcy, is going to be 4 to 5 months in most cases. In most Chapter 7 bankruptcies, you're going to maintain all of your assets. You're not going to lose your home. You're not going to lose your car. I could count on one hand the number of bankruptcies I've filed over the last 30 plus years where somebody has lost a home or lost a car where they didn't intend to surrender that collateral when they filed bankruptcy. So typically in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're not going to lose any assets. You're not going to lose any of your property. Now, negatives about a straight bankruptcy. Number one, typically you're going to have to pay all of your attorney's fees and court costs before your bankruptcy is filed. So, if you're already facing a garnishment, if you're already facing a possible repossession or a foreclosure against your home and you need help quickly, and you can't come up with the money to pay for everything in advance, that may be a deterrence to you filing a straight bankruptcy Chapter 7. In a personal reorganization bankruptcy, which we'll talk about Chapter 13, most, if not all of your attorney's fee and court costs can be paid as part of your plan of reorganization. It's going to differ based on you and your particular situation, but often we're able to file a reorganization quickly and without you paying any money up front. So straight bankruptcy is quick. You are going to have to pay for it up front in most circumstances. The other thing I really encourage people to think about is this: what's the biggest thing you lose when you file a straight bankruptcy? And most people would say, "Oh, my credit's going to be ruined." Folks, usually by the time you come to see me, unfortunately, your credit's already in bad shape. If I've told you, as I told you earlier, bankruptcy can be the first step in rebuilding your credit. The biggest thing you lose when you file a straight bankruptcy, and most of my clients roll their eyes around now, you lose your right to file another Chapter 7 bankruptcy and get a discharge for 8 years. Now, the reason people roll their eyes is they say, "Look, I don't want to be here talking to you now. I don't want to file bankruptcy now. I sure as heck don't want to file it again." But I believe in what I do, folks. Bankruptcy is an important safety net. If something bad happens, if you get into a financial situation you can't dig your way out of, bankruptcy relief is available. Well, if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy now, you're not going to be able to file another Chapter 7 bankruptcy and get a discharge for a period of 8 years. So you're without that Chapter 7 safety net. I hope and pray if we file bankruptcy once, you'll never have to do it again. But it's important to know that you're giving up that option if you do so. And I'm usually concerned about that with an individual that even if I help them get bankruptcy protection, is still going to be living on a tight budget. If you're a single mom and you're just barely making it from paycheck to paycheck as it is, and I can help you get rid of your debt, but you give up that right to seek another Chapter 7 discharge for a period of time, it may not be the best step for you. It's at least something we should consider. Chapter 7, good point. As I told you, it wipes out just about every debt you have, but there are some important exceptions. If you want to keep your home, you've got to keep paying on your home. you can't keep your home and not pay the debt anymore. If you want to keep your car, you've got to keep paying on your car. And then there are certain types of debt that just by their nature, you can't get rid of through a straight Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Examples would be child support, alimony, marital debt, most taxes, at least recent tax debt. Now, there are exceptions, and we'll want to analyze your situation if you do have back tax debt, because some tax debt is dischargeable in bankruptcy. Student loan debt is usually not dischargeable. Debt that you might have incurred through fraud. If a creditor can prove that you lied to them and they relied on misrepresentations you made, and they suffered some sort of detriment or damages as a result of you lying to them, that debt may not be dischargeable in a bankruptcy. So all of those factors are going to be considered when we talk to you, what type of debt you have. We'll look at what you own. When you file a straight bankruptcy, you can only protect certain assets. You can only protect a certain amount of equity in your home. You can only protect a certain amount of personal property. So if your home is paid for or you own some important, expensive piece of property, Chapter 7 may not be your best option. You may not be able to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy because you make too much money. We'll talk about what's called the means test, which in a nutshell provides that if your income is higher than the median income for a household your size in the state you live in, there's a presumption that you can't file a straight bankruptcy. That presumption we can often overcome and still get you through a straight bankruptcy, but your income is going to be considered. All right, Chapter 13, on the other hand, let's talk about the bad part first. The bad part is it's not quick. You're going to be in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy typically for at least 3 years and up to 5 years. Your plan is typically going to be between 36 and 60 months. How long the plan lasts is going to depend on a number of things, including, again, your household income, the type of debt you have, the amount of debt you have, factors we'd need to consider. But there are some good things about a Chapter 13. As I've already said, typically in a Chapter 13, you're not paying all of your attorney's fees up front, sometimes not any of your attorney's fees. Sometimes we're able to put all of our fees into your plan of reorganization. Sometimes we can do the same with your court costs so that you can get started and get the protection of the bankruptcy code without putting any money down up front. We certainly offer absolutely free initial consultations, and we absolutely can propose what type bankruptcy is good for you. If it's a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, we can often do that for no money up front. So why are the types of debt are important? Again, we talked about secured debt versus unsecured debt. You can't discharge secured debt and keep the property. So you have a car loan, you have a mortgage. If you file a straight bankruptcy Chapter 7, you're either going to have to surrender the collateral. Now, you can get rid of the debt on your mortgage or car if you're willing to give up the collateral. Some of our clients, make that choice going in. I talked earlier about people deciding they can no longer afford the car they have or the house they have and continue the payments. So some people will surrender the collateral. If you don't surrender it, the creditor will often ask you to reaffirm on the debt. That means that the debt will survive the bankruptcy discharge. You'll still owe it following the bankruptcy. Sometimes you have the option of doing what's called a redemption, and that is offering the creditor the value of the collateral you own. So say you have a car that you still owe $10,000 on, but it's only worth $5,000. Well, if you can offer and give the creditor that $5,000 right after the bankruptcy is filed, you can redeem the collateral. Anything, I go over in this brief video today, there are going to be exceptions. Don't ever trust any attorney that guarantees you anything. We want to talk about the nuances of your case, your situation. We want to help you. Don't trust just general advice. Ask for more specific information. Tax debt. Typically, most tax debt you can't get rid of in a straight bankruptcy. But in a Chapter 13 reorganization bankruptcy, we can propose a plan to pay it back over a period of time, often without additional penalties, sometimes without interest. And you often feel like you just have no control when you're dealing with the Internal Revenue Service. Well, you do if you file for bankruptcy protection. Federal bankruptcy judge can tell the Internal Revenue Service to leave you alone, to not levy against your wages, to not record a lien against your home, and give you a period of time to pay back that tax that you may not be able to get rid of in a straight bankruptcy, but you can propose a plan to pay it back through your Chapter 13 personal reorganization. Cars. Oftentimes people come to us, something's happened and they've got behind on their car payments and they're worried about a repossession on their car. Straight bankruptcy, you can't do a whole lot to get caught up. And if you're behind, the creditor may ask the court to take away its protection. It's called a relief from the automatic stay. You'll hear us talk about. But through a Chapter 13 reorganization, we can help you catch up what you're behind, stop the repossession. Often we can reduce the interest rate you owe on it. Sometimes we can reduce the balance that you owe the creditor on the car. But in most situations, as long as we can get your bankruptcy filed, your plan of reorganization filed before your car is repossessed, we're going to be able to protect that car. You may be behind on those mortgage payments we talked about earlier. Mortgage debt, we can help you with in a reorganization type bankruptcy. We can propose a plan to stop foreclosure sale and catch up what you're behind over time. All of those categories of debt that may not be dischargeable in a straight Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Mortgage debt, car loans, most back taxes, child support, alimony you're behind on, debts that may have been incurred with some type of misrepresentation asserted by the creditor. Although you wouldn't be able to get rid of it in a straight bankruptcy, we can propose a plan of reorganization to pay it back over a period of time. Now, a Chapter 13 reorganization bankruptcy is not a loan. You're not necessarily paying off all of your debt in full. The importance of whether or not debt is secured or unsecured comes into play, because often with the unsecured debt, and remember, those are going to be things like credit cards, medical bills, personal loans where you didn't put up collateral. Maybe somebody's suing you and there's a lawsuit pending against you. As long as they haven't taken a judgment, recorded that judgment, it's still an unsecured debt. Those creditors in your plan of reorganization, we can often pay just a percentage, sometimes a very small percentage or nothing at all through your plan of reorganization. So again, many advantages also to a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, but it's going to be dependent upon the type of debt you have, the assets you have. That's why it's so important to reach out to us and arrange for an initial confidential consultation with an experienced attorney. Again, the bond and BOTUS law offices are located throughout Alabama, throughout Mississippi. Right now, and for the foreseeable future, we are going to be offering absolutely free initial consultations with an attorney. You're not going to talk to a paralegal or somebody that hasn't gone through law school. All of our attorneys are experienced, licensed by the state bar associations where we practiced, admitted to federal court, with experience in the bankruptcy system. And we're going to offer an absolutely confidential initial consultation. If you feel like you're getting behind on your bills, You're already behind on your bills. You may be worried about losing your home or losing your car. The time to reach out for help is now. You can't be too early with this. There's no cost, there's no obligation, but know what your rights are. It's going to make you feel better. And you know, if you're married, you're husband and wife, you're dealing with the stress and anxiety of being unable to pay your bills or what the future may bring financially, the best thing you can do for your marriage is reach out for help together. I get a lot of referrals from a pastor at my church that does marital counseling because he knows we can help a couple put together a plan to work their way out of debt with some dignity, to maintain their assets and to get on with their life. It's important that we know what type of debt you have, secured, unsecured, student loans we talked about usually are not dischargeable in a straight bankruptcy, back taxes. If you have unfiled tax returns, you need to get them filed. You're not going to be eligible for that Chapter 13 reorganization bankruptcy we talked about unless your tax returns for the last 4 years at a minimum have been filed. So we're going to talk about that when you come in. Again, all of these factors, very important for us to know when we're counseling you as to the best steps for you and if bankruptcy relief is necessary for the type of bankruptcy protection that you seek. It will impact the advice we give you. Now, the second part of this is what happens after bankruptcy. We want to help you. Our job isn't done once we get you that bankruptcy discharge. Our job is to help you reestablish, rebuild your credit. It's interesting. Back in the late 1980s, when I started doing this work, it was difficult to help rebuild their credit. Bankruptcy was a bad mark on your credit and often difficult to rebound from. I can tell you that's not the case today. In fact, I probably spend more time helping my clients to not become repeat clients because credit's usually readily available after a bankruptcy. Why is that? Well, think about it. If you're already in a bad financial situation and you haven't filed bankruptcy and you go to somebody for help, you go to a banker, you go to a loan company, first thing they're going to look at is the fact that you're having a difficult time paying the bills you have now. How are you going to pay them and pay on a new loan? They're also going to factor in the fact that if they lend you money, you may file a bankruptcy the next week or the next month, and they may not be paid back. Whereas if you go to a lender right after your bankruptcy discharge, number one, you've gotten rid of hopefully most of all of the other debt you had, and you're unlikely or going to be ineligible to seek bankruptcy protection again for a period of time. So often you're a better risk. And in fact, today I have my clients receive pre-approved credit cards in the mail shortly after their bankruptcy discharge, letters from local car dealerships offering to finance automobiles. Not going to be the best terms, so you need to be very careful about rebuilding your credit. People want to know how soon they're going to be able to buy a home, mortgage debt. Typically, I tell people it's going to take about 3 years before you're going to qualify for a traditional type mortgage. On the other hand, when people come to see me before they file bankruptcy, they're usually in no condition to qualify for a mortgage. So bankruptcy is going to create a time period within which you are going to be able to buy a new home, because within 3 years after that discharge, most people are going to qualify for a new home. So rebuilding your credit, you're going to get those pre-approved credit card offers. Unfortunately, they're usually going to be high interest and with small balances. I'm not going to tell you not to use those credit cards, but what I'm going to tell you, and you've heard this before, is if you're going to use them, pay them off every month. What you want to do is build up a positive credit history following your bankruptcy. So if you do get those, and you will get those pre-approved credit card offers, use them for smaller purchases. but pay off that balance every month. So you're building up a positive payment history. If you go out and get a new car loan, which you're usually going to be able to without much difficulty at all following your bankruptcy discharge, make sure it's a loan that has a reasonable number of payments, hopefully a loan that you can pay off in 36 to 48 months, a low interest rate, and a payment you can afford, because you want to make those payments on time every month. That also will help you rebuild your credit following bankruptcy. You don't want late payments on your credit cards. You don't want late payments on your car or a repossession following the bankruptcy. When you do get that mortgage, or as we've talked about, you may have reaffirmed or agreed to keep paying on your old mortgage through the bankruptcy, make those future payments on time. What I want you to stay away from following your bankruptcy are people that will take advantage of you, high interest lenders. Pawn transactions are often going to be at a high interest rate. Often a pawn shop is not going to report even your good payments to a credit reporting agency. Stay away from pawn shops. Stay away from payday loans if you can. Payday loans are going to be at a high interest rate. My clients often refer to them as a treadmill that keeps getting faster and faster. The payments keep coming due. You're not making any progress because you're not paying the balance down. So stay away from payday loans. Stay away from most internet loans. A lot of the loans you're going to find on the internet are going to be high interest, and they're going to want a direct line to your bank account where they can take money directly out of your bank account if you're unable to make the payments. It's sold as a good option because it's going to help you stay current, but it's not going to be a good option if you can't pay for your groceries that coming month, or you can't pay for your child's daycare. It's typically not a good idea to have a lender taking money directly out of your bank account. Make sure your taxes stay current following your bankruptcy. You don't want to get behind on your taxes. In student loans, if you have them, they're typically going to still be around after you get your bankruptcy discharge. Try to rehabilitate the student loans if they're behind, and we can help you with that. If they're government guaranteed type student loans, which most are, we'll help you determine exactly what the status is and what your options are as far as getting those student loans back on track, so that you're making progress in getting those paid off or resolved over a period of time. What I want you hopefully to do following your bankruptcy, again, credit cards paid off monthly, not paying any annual fee, not paying any high interest rates to the credit card company. Car loan, look for a car you can afford. It's not bad to buy a car that's a couple of years old to start rebuilding your credit with. Make sure the interest rate is reasonable. Make sure the payments are payments you can afford, and make sure that that loan is going to pay off within 3 to 4 years, so that the car doesn't, wear down and you still owe money on it. You want to try to pay off the car for the amount of time the car is going to last you, and protect your home. If you have mortgage debt that goes through bankruptcy, get those payments on track and keep them current. Something I often see people do is they'll see on their mortgage payment that they have a due date and a late date, and they're more worried about making the payment before the late date than the due date. That's not a good practice. The mortgage company or mortgage lender may not tack on a late charge as long as you pay it before the late date, but interest is continuing to accrue on that balance. If you pay it following the due date, if you want that loan to pay off within the 15 or 30 years, whatever you agreed to at the beginning, you need to pay it by the due date every month. And you want to make sure it's there on time so that you're building up positive credit information. So folks, there's good debt. There's not so good debt, and then there's really bad debt. I've tried to talk to you about some of those today. What I want to encourage you to do is let your friends know that if you think they'd benefit from what we talked about today, let them know about these videos. We produce these weekly. We try to talk about important topics for people that are facing financial problems. They live on our Facebook page. They're also on our website. Share these videos, encourage people to come back and listen to them. I think we've provided some good information. The important thing I want you to know, if you're behind on your bills, if you're feeling the stress, you're feeling the anxiety that bad credit might cause right now, reach out for help now. My offices, we're offering absolutely free initial consultations. We're doing this throughout Alabama and throughout Mississippi. Call us. Usually there'll be an attorney. If it's during our normal business hours, usually there'll be an attorney to talk to you right then. Or if you want to schedule something for a time, maybe when both you and your wife can be on the phone, we can do that too. But reach out for help. There's no cost. There's no obligation. We're going to help you look at all of your options, and we're going to treat you like family. We've been around for the length of time we have because we get a lot of referrals from our past clients. We've helped a lot of people get to a better place with their financial obligations, and we want to help you do the same. There's no shame in reaching out for help. We're here because we want to help you get out from under the stress and the pressure that financial problems are causing. So finally, the Bond and Bodas law offices are located throughout Alabama and Mississippi. Absolutely free initial consultations. You call us, we're going to treat you like we would, like I would, one of my siblings, a parent, a grandparent. All different types of people have financial problems. Give us a call, go to our website, and we'll be there for you. I'll see you next Wednesday. We'll talk about an important topic next week also. But until that time, from all of us at the Bond and Bodas law offices, God bless. Take care of yourself. Let us know if we can help you. We'll see you next week. Thank you.